All right, let's look at how to use a specific index in TSQL with one disclosure that I would definitely not be doing this except in incredibly rare cases. You want to first of all verify that the index is not being used or is not being used consistently. In other words, you want to verify that there's a problem. You also want to make sure that this is the absolute best way to return your data if you're going to be using index hints. And the reason for that is because things can change, right? If we're talking about a table that's growing, if we're talking about a table that, or an index specifically that is going to become fragmented, if we're talking about an index that may not have its statistics up to date, etc., if it's not the best approach, or if there's going to be a lot of changes that don't make it the best approach, let's just imagine a scenario where you have person A who uses a specific index hint, and then person B ends up taking over the project and doesn't know why that was done, right? That ends up creating a problem because you don't know. So, and in fact, it may take more time to prove than it's actually worth. And another good question to look at is there absolutely no other way that you can do this? For instance, can you update statistics? Can you defrag the index and see what happens? Because remember that if you're going to use a specific index hint, it's going to now use that index, even if the query shouldn't be using that index. So now it's stuck using that, okay? And then test this heavily before our release. I didn't put this on there, but you definitely want to document this. Okay, so we have two of the exact same queries, and their behavior is, by the way, normal. If I were to run these queries, they're both going to do the same thing. As you'll see in the very first query, we are specifically using an index. So I'm selecting star from this savings rate table, and I'm saying, hey, we're going to use this specific index, okay? And this is this primary key index, which it would use, which is on the date field. This may be appropriate. Now, in this example, let's say that SQL Server was not picking the most optimal index. And of course, SQL Server is, we don't have to worry about it. But let's say in this example, because this is a great example of a table where the data are being added, you're getting one value a month. So at most, you're getting 12 new values, a year, and you're getting the average on those values. Well, the key here is that if you've documented it, it would probably make sense to the next person. But if you have an example where a table is growing by billions of records a year, or millions of records a year, you're going to start getting into trouble because there's a possibility that SQL Server will need to use a different index. So keep that in mind. The behavior of both of these queries is going to be the same. They're going to use the savings rate or IX savings rate index. You can force it, and again, there may be appropriate situations. One of the things that I've observed is that it's junior DBAs that want to generally use a forced index, or junior BI developers, and they're not thinking about the unintended consequences. Yes, for that one query, that's fine, but now what's going to happen when you need to move on to something else? And so that's just something that I would consider. Didn't put this on there, but I would highly recommend documenting that, because if someone else does take over, they're going to need to know why you did that. And there will probably be a time, maybe not, but there will probably be a time in which that index hint will need to be removed.